Hello, thank you for joining me. My name's Adam Crosby, and today I'd like to talk about automated writing evaluation, or AWE, and how it's shaping language education. So this presentation may be especially beneficial for teachers who are actually teaching writing classes to EFL students. So this is an outline of what I'll talk about today. First, what actually is AWE? Then, following that, the benefits and drawbacks of AWE. After that, how to balance AWE and regular teacher feedback in the classroom. And then following that, I'll show some real examples of how I use AWE and regular teacher feedback from some writing classes that I have taught in the past. So what actually is AWE? Well, AWE actually started out under several different names. Originally, it was referred to as automated essay scoring, also automated essay grading, and even automated essay evaluation. So these early systems were created to help grade and evaluate the huge numbers of essays in standardized tests, such as TOEFL. Back then, the focus was mainly on giving scores based on a standard set of features or a rubric, trying to match the consistency and efficiency of human raters in these important examinations. But as education shifted towards a more learner-centered approach, these tools evolved, and instead of just scoring essays, AWE systems began offering real-time formative feedback on things like grammar and punctuation. So this change is what moved AWE forward to where it is today. So this slide shows just a few of the many AWE platforms available out there today. There are numerous ones. And as you know, some of them, or many of them, offer free platforms, or if you pay a subscription, you can get an upgraded version. First, I'd like to talk about the benefits of AWE, and I'd like to focus specifically on the benefits for students. So research has shown that the use of AWE in university writing classes can lead to increased student engagement. Studies indicate that students respond positively to the interactive nature of AWE. In particular, the speed of the feedback, because it's immediate feedback. Another important point to mention is because this feedback is delivered in a low pressure environment, students feel more comfortable drafting and revising and reflecting on their writing. So as a result, the students, they tend to participate and more actively and engage with the writing. As I mentioned, AWE is very fast in delivering feedback. So these platforms can identify and correct grammar and syntax errors in real time. And they're becoming very accurate, and they're quite precise in terms of things like grammar and punctuation and surface errors. So this is a very attractive benefit for the students. Another benefit I'd like to mention is that AWE has been shown to boost student motivation. Research has shown that students feel more confident and more independent when receiving feedback through AWE. And because the feedback is immediate and it's non-judgmental, students feel safe experimenting with writing, trying different ideas and taking risks in their writing. And this can increase their motivation. So this supportive environment increases their willingness to revise and encourages more effort. And that leads to students producing better writing. The sense of control students gain from managing their own revisions that may help build long-term confidence in their writing, and it also reinforces positive writing habits. Another point I'd like to mention is student-to-student interaction. So students working together. This is quite an exciting benefit for the teachers. So with the quick AWE feedback, students can work together in, for example, pairs or small groups and discuss the suggestions and corrections provided by AWE. So teachers can utilize this by encouraging interaction among students in writing classes. As anyone who has taught a writing class in Japan knows, getting students to peer review each other's work can be a very difficult task indeed. Students are quite reluctant to critique or evaluate other students' writing. So with AWE, it allows teachers to now create some interactive tasks for students in writing classes. Now I'd like to mention some benefits for the teachers. So AWE reduces the teacher's grading workload by automating routine error correction, surface errors and punctuation and things like that. Teachers can gain a lot more time for individual feedback sessions. So grading a large number of essays or even paragraphs can take a long time, especially if you're teaching 2 or 3 or more writing classes. So by using AWE, this allows teachers to spend more time on issues that they probably might not have had time to do in the past, like organization and clarity and expanding ideas. So this is very beneficial for teachers, as I mentioned, who teach several writing classes. Well, it does. AWE does have benefits. However, it also has drawbacks, and it's important to mention those. So one drawback is that AWE mainly focuses on surface level issues, such as grammar and punctuation. So it struggles with deeper aspects of writing, such as pragmatics or tone or informal language use. So AWE can struggle to support learners in developing socially sensitive writing skills. As I mentioned, understanding tone or politeness, AWE struggles with that. And understanding tone or politeness or socially acceptable writing skills, that often requires human judgment, and this is where AWE falls behind regular teacher feedback. Another concern relates to the authenticity of the student work, and this is quite a big, a major concern, that the student's writing becomes too good. Personally, I think writing is a process, and students are expected to develop their writing skills through that process, and that involves planning and drafting and revising and reflecting and making mistakes. That's part of the process. However, when work is produced with the help of AWE, the writing can appear too perfect, and that raises questions as to whether it is generally a reflection of the student's own writing ability. So when AWE enhances the work of students beyond what they're capable of by themselves, it interrupts the writing process. And another thing to mention is that students, without going through the regular process, making mistakes and seeing the improvement, they might not gain a sense of achievement or satisfaction that comes from going through that process. Also, AWE can restrict creativity in writing, a loss of creative writing, because these systems, AWE systems, are designed to prioritize correctness and accuracy. This can lead to the students producing very rigid structures, rigid style writing. So this emphasis on correctness can push students to writing a very one-way predictable pattern, and that moves away from creativity. This is especially a concern when AWE is used is used extremely often or regularly, as the students may just try to produce accurate or somewhat what they see as perfect writing instead of writing that is creative. So it's important to balance the positives and negatives of AWE, and a good way to do that is through a balance of using AWE and also regular teacher feedback. So as AWE becomes more common and used regularly, both inside and outside the classroom, and it is important to note that it's very hard to control what students do outside of the classroom. So I think teachers need to redefine their roles of what they're actually doing, what they're there for. Through the use of AWE, teachers now have the opportunity to spend more time guiding students, developing skills that in the past they did not have time to do. And that, when I say that, I mean things like planning, brainstorming, narrowing themes, and organizing, getting organized to write their paragraphs or essays. If teachers know that they won't have to spend hours and hours correcting grammar and punctuation and even spelling errors and things like that, then that will let them have much more time to spend on these things that I just mentioned now and guiding students through the writing process. So the challenge is to find the right balance between using the technology, AWE, and regular teacher feedback. So in the next few slides, I'll show some examples of how I myself do that. So I teach at, as I mentioned, I think I mentioned, Crosby City College of Nursing. So I teach students who major in a Bachelor of Science in Nursing. So my situation may be a little different to teachers who teach students majoring in English. So I teach two types of students. The first type are students who are fourth-year seminar students. They're writing their graduation thesis. And often these students haven't studied English for 3 years or even more, even since high school. And the other the other students I teach are students, PhD students enrolled in a PhD course at this college, and they have to write an abstract of their PhD in English. So the abstract is written in English. It's quite a serious task for the students. And this is even more challenging because these PhD students, often they're mature age students who haven't had any contact with English for up to 20 years. So first we'll look at the undergraduate students and how I use AWE and regular teacher feedback. So in the beginning, I meet the students, we talk about what they want to write about, and they come up with a theme or a field. And we spend quite a few weeks going through the organization of how to write and brainstorming and things like that. Then I encourage them to write in English a first draft of their graduation thesis. And this is quite a challenge for them, but they do their best and come up with something here. As you can see, this is just a small part of a graduation paper that a student volunteered to let me use for this presentation. And as you can see, there are many mistakes in there, surface errors, spelling, subject verb errors, and things like that. So this is their first draft. At the top of the screen, you can see the first draft. And after they write that, we sit down and I show them how to use AWE. In this particular situation, the student used Grammarly, a free version of Grammarly. And Grammarly will indicate all the mistakes and how to change the draft into a better version. It's important to mention that the students don't use AWE to change the contents of their writing, just the surface errors, punctuation and spelling, grammar mistakes, things like that. So after they do that, and they produce a second version of their paper, I then print that off. I print it off, and then I use regular feedback where I circle things and underline things, and then things that I'm going to talk to the student about. After that, we sit down in a session, a feedback session, and we talk about this and that and how they could change this to make it better and why they use this particular word or this sentence. And we go through this process a number of times, and eventually, over the course of a year, it is actually, they come up with their final draft. And as you can see, it's starting to look quite good. And as I mentioned, it's important to mention that the contents are not changed by the technology. The contents are the same. They just change the surface areas and the presentability of the graduation paper. And the feedback I get from the undergraduate students is very good. They seem very pleased that they've gone through the process of writing, and they gain quite a lot of confidence and satisfaction from producing an originally produced English graduation thesis. Now, the next slide here shows a very small part of an abstract from a PhD student. So as I mentioned, these students often, they're mature age students who have not had any contact with English for a long time. And very similar to the undergraduate students, I encourage them to write a draft in English without using any translation software. And as you can see in this slide at the top, that is their first draft. It's just a small screenshot of their first draft. And this student was very kind in volunteering to let me use this for this presentation as well. And after they produce the first draft, I show them how to use AWE. Again, this was used with Grammarly, I believe. And then they change surface errors, punctuation and spelling, and there's there's a couple of gap mistakes in there too, I think. And then I print that off. And as you can see in this slide at the bottom of the screen, I print that off and I sit down with the student who wrote the paper, and we go through what they want to do to make it better, and eventually we come up with a final draft. So in this slide, at the top of the screen is their draft 1, and at the bottom is their final draft, and that process takes about 6 months to do. As I mentioned, this is only a small part of their actual abstract. So in summary, benefits, yes. AWE has many benefits, benefits for the students and benefits for the teachers. So AWE has been shown to increase engagement, motivation and autonomy by providing quick, immediate feedback in real time. It's also low pressure feedback. And this can be can also be beneficial for student-to-student interaction in writing classes. As for the teachers, well, of course, AWE reduces their workload for correcting basic errors and punctuation mistakes and things like that. And that frees up time for teachers to focus on organization, clarity, and basic expansion of ideas and things like that. However, AWE has drawbacks. It's important to note that. And it focuses mainly on surface level accuracy, and it struggles with tone and context creativity. However, it's certainly possible to balance the benefits and drawbacks of AWE And by that, I mean by using a balance of AWE and regular teacher feedback. So I'd like to say a special thanks to the Asian Conference for Innovation in Education for allowing me to present this presentation online. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person, but I'm extremely grateful to be able to have this opportunity to share this with you. And also here is a list of references that are used for this presentation. Thank you very much.